What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs baseball channel and a little, I guess this is almost like a progress report that we're going to do today with Al Yellon from Bleed Cubbie Blue. We're going to talk about the Cubs, the pitching. Obviously, the bullpen has been an issue. The starting pitching has been great. How about the way that this team has dealt with injuries, losing their best players and still not losing in the standings? What grade would you give Craig Counsell? All that and more right here on the Cubs baseball channel. So before we get this live conversation started, like and subscribe. Hey, and by the way, guys, thank you. Look, let me just say thank you. We hit 5,000 subscribers, and it's because of you guys right there. So let's keep it going. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. You just saw Al. He's ready to go. But before we do, let's get this thing going. All right, there he is, Al Yellon from Bleed Cubbie Blue. I'm Mick Gillispie here at the Cubs baseball channel, and it's great to see all of you guys out there as we get some this conversation started. And Al, there's so much to get into. Thanks for coming on today. And before we even exchange pleasantries, let's just talk about this bullpen. What in the world are we going to do with this shaky bullpen? Tell everybody right now.
If I had the answers, I'd call up Jed Hoyer and let him know. But, I don't think I have the answers any more than anybody else does. They put together a bullpen. Here's what the funny thing about the bullpen is. When the Cubs were rebuilding 2021 and 2022, and even into early 23, Jed Hoyer signed a bunch of relievers that he wound up, trading and getting good pieces for him. Michael Givens and David Robertson and Chris Martin, all, they got good pieces back, and those guys pitched well. Now they're trying to contend, and they're signing kind of the same type of relief pitchers off the open market, and they're just not working. Just not working. I really wish I had an answer. I wish I had an answer why Hector Neris, who was very effective in Houston, has, not been getting outs. Although, he's getting saves. They're just, they just kind of make you have a heart attack. We're going to maybe call him Heart Attack Hector.
Yeah.
Adbert Alzolay did a great job last year as closer, and now he just, every time he comes in, it looks like a home run leaves the ballpark. At least yesterday he did manage to finish off the game. So they, even though he gave up a home run, hopefully that's a confidence builder for him.
Yeah. Yep. So much. And guys in the comment section, jump in on the conversation here. John, good to see you guys as we talk to you live on the show today with our friend Al. Al's also pushing a book right now. It's not out yet, but it's pretty cool that he's written a book, and we're going to kind of hit this a few times during the show, but it's called Chicago Cubs First. So, if you guys are, interested, maybe somebody you like reading, or you got a birthday or holiday coming up and you want to give them a good gift, like maybe for your tabletop, whatever. Al,
definitely a good Father's Day gift for sure.
Yeah. See,
and one thing about the book, we're going to have something in there that's never been published before. It'll be the very first date that the W flag ever flew over the Wrigley Field scoreboard. So that should be a cool thing for people to find out.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I love the W flag. I still hashtag fly the W. I'm never going to stop hashtag.
I agree. I wish the Cubs would keep that. It's a great slogan. It's unique to the team. It's something everybody loves. I just wish they'd use that as their full-time slogan.
It's almost like, I feel like with the hashtags, we try to make it so creative that you forget what it is all the time. Like I don't know how many times I've had to look back and, like, I have like a screenshot of a tweet so that when I forget that it's you have to see it. I forget sometimes when I'm in the middle of writing, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like you got
everybody remembers fly the W.
Yeah. I mean, like it became part of our culture with the Cubs. But going back to the bullpen, I'm with you on Neris. Although I look as rocky as it's been, he has got the boat out of the water and to shore safely, but it's never easy. I have no idea what's going on with Alzolay. I think that when he was injured last year, he just hasn't come back the same. He just doesn't look the same. It doesn't have the same movement. It doesn't have the same electric when he throws. And you're right. He gives up a home run a lot in these big spots.
The other thing that's been suggested, and there was a BCB reader who suggested that maybe he's tipping his pitches. And so, that's something maybe they should look into because, you don't just see home runs like that, going out every single day unless the hitter knows what's coming. So maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah, I see. I think it's just stuff. Like the slider last year had more bite to it.
Mhm.
Now it slides and he misses out over the plate, right? And
Right.
then the fastball, it just seems like it's a couple ticks slower, maybe just a little less movement. And I just don't. There was just something different last year before he got injured. And I'm not one of these guys that I don't have the spin rates and and the shape and all the stuff. I just know from watching, it's just different.
I just hope there's, no lingering effects from that injury. If there is, well, I think you got to get him on the injured list because you can't keep sending him out there if he's injured and having him lose games.
Yeah, but the problem is that like there's just not a lot of other options, right? I mean, like he came in yesterday and he thank God that Wisdom hit that home run because it won the game for the Cubs. But he gives up the 2-run homer. I mean, you know how the season's gone for him. He's even got some saves, but he's a 50-50 proposition right now, when it comes to closing games out. And then I look past him. Obviously Mark Leiter Jr. is great. It stinks that Julian Merriweather got injured, and it's a weird injury. I don't know when he's coming back, but you lose him, and then the one thing that the system really hasn't produced yet is relievers. And I feel like if you put Ben Brown in the bullpen, you take a risk of messing up a starter that you got. It's a different type of strain on your arm when you throw out of the bullpen.
At the same time, look at the relief appearance he had Friday night in Pittsburgh. I mean, lights out for 3+ innings. If they don't have anybody else who can shut down games, maybe there's your answer. At least on a temporary basis.
Well, if you put him as a closer, I mean, you're taking a risk of him turning out like Alzolay, though. You know what I mean? Like you got somebody that can start right now, and then you do that, and it's like, hey, go in there and huff. The problem to me on this whole thing is that we've changed the way that these guys approach pitching. It used to be, hey, I'm just going to go get outs. Now it's, I'm going to try to throw as hard as I can and spin it as hard as I can. And I've talked to people that have taught pitching, that have been around the game, scouts that have worked in baseball for 50 years. And they're like, well, no wonder. I mean, when you put everything you have in every single pitch, then there's a chance that you're going to have injuries. And I feel like that's probably why. And that's what I'm afraid of with someone like Ben Brown.
I think you hit on something just a minute ago, though, when you said that, the job of the reliever, especially a guy who's closing, is just get outs. If you come in the ninth inning, you just need to get 3 outs. So does that mean throwing as hard as you can for as long as you can? Maybe. But, also maybe mix up your pitches. You say when Adbert Alzolay is going well, his slider is a devastating out pitch. It's just not working. So maybe they got to figure out a way to fix that. Then I see people talking about, well, the Cubs need to trade for a lockdown closer. And relief pitchers are so fickle. I'll give you a good example. We saw David Bednar pitch for the Pirates over the weekend. David Bednar might have been the best closer in baseball last year. He had 39 saves. He only had 2 blown saves. He made the All-Star team. And now his ERA is 9. So, does a guy change that much over just one winter? If you trade for somebody who looks good and then all of a sudden he starts blowing saves. So, just like they signed Craig Kimbrell in the middle of 2019 and thought, everything's going to go great. And then it just didn't. So, it's a lot of it is just guesswork and luck.
Yeah, you're right. That Kimbrell trade, I remember that. They went and signed him, and it was like, and I don't think he was ever really great. He was okay. I mean, we ended up trading him and get something for him, but
I mean, he was fine. That first half of 21, he was really good, and that's why they were able to get. Well, they got 2 major league players for him: Cody Hoyer, who's been injured and is now a free agent, and Nick Madrigal, who's never really kind of filled the potential that he once had. So, but at least they did get 2 major league players in trade for him.
Yeah, right. Love Little. If he comes in, not good. Keegan Thompson been either really good or not good at all, but not consistent. But I mean, I feel more comfortable with him than Love Little, or what is that his name? Lovelace?
Love Lady.
Okay.
The interesting thing about Thompson, you remember back to 2 years ago, he and Justin Steele were being talked about as, the future of the Cubs starters. Well, Steele's gone on to become a really good almost number one starting pitcher, and Thompson is up and down to Iowa all the time. You just never know with these guys. Clearly Thompson has talent. He just hasn't been able to, become the finished product.
Yeah, right. And now he's in the bullpen and, whatever. But I mean, it's like there's just not a whole lot of options. And I'll say this too, kind of just finishing up the conversation on bullpen. I think Craig Counsell's done a good job of managing the fact that there's not a whole lot to manage, meaning that it's not like he's got answers out there. He's just trying to figure out how to get outs with some of these guys who don't belong even in the major leagues.
Yeah, there aren't obviously statistical measures, StatCast type analysis for managers. How many games does a manager win? But you can just see every day that Craig Counsell is like 5 steps ahead of the guy in the other dugout. We saw that all the time when he was managing the Brewers, and so I'm glad he's on our side now. He's definitely doing a really good job. Everything you might have expected for him. Do the Cubs have more wins than they would have had if David Ross had been managing this team? Yes, probably. How many wins is that? It's really hard to quantify, but I think by the end of the season, Craig Counsell is going to make a difference for this team, and hopefully enough of a difference that they, instead of the Brewers, win the division.
Yeah, look, I feel like that too. I mean, you go through the stretch that this team went through, losing the 3 best players on the team, right? Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki, Justin Steele, and he finds a way to grind out wins when, a lot of teams might not. And if the bullpen was half decent, the Cubs would have a 4-game lead on the Brewers right now.
Right, and that's also injuries like as you've mentioned, Julian Merryweather. Having Merryweather over this weekend series with the Pirates, maybe they sweep the series if they've got a guy like that. So, they definitely miss him. They need some help. Hopefully Merryweather comes back. It'll help. Otherwise, they got to figure out, where to get, maybe they can grab somebody who's not that lockdown closer, some, under the radar guy that they can trade for. It's probably not going to happen in the middle of May. We got more than 2 months till the trade deadline. A lot can happen between now and the end of July.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like this has the same Joe Madden vibe to me in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Look, he's not Joe Madden and I would be the best show on television because we could go drink our drinks and, I'm all about a shot and a beer, right? And talking baseball and kind of getting off in the subjects that have nothing to do with the game. Craig Counsell's not that guy. I mean, he's like laser focused and, he's almost a tactician when it comes to thinking ahead, not just with the major league games, but the way that he knows the scouting, the way that he gets to know the scouts in the organization, the way that he knows the players from the time that they get into the Dominican. He's different in a lot of ways because his brain kind of works like scouting. And then, and I guess that's what makes him special. What the similarity is, both guys in a different way are winners. And I just feel like that with him.
Yeah. I mean, Counsell's way ahead of, like I said, the guy in the other dugout. We're not going to see zoo animals or themed road trips with Craig Counsell. But we are going to see really intense baseball thought, and he's always steps ahead. We saw it from the other dugout for 9 years while he was in Milwaukee. Craig Counsell played Major League Baseball for a long time. He played on 2 World Series winning teams. He was never a great player. He was a good player for a while. So, a guy like that, I think, has a sense that baseball is not easy, that, not everybody's going to succeed all the time, and that, he can support his players like that because they know he had been through the same grind as they're going through.
Yeah, I love that about him. And that's not even something that I was even going to bring up, but that to me is one of the biggest differences with this team because we needed those young guys to come up and perform. Pete Crow Armstrong, and I said it on here, I believe in the guy. I think he's a good player. I think he has the potential to be a great player. We didn't see that last year. You could tell the pressure was really mounting on him. He gets the home run to beat the Astros, and then the post-game press conference, Counsell's like, hey, you know what? We just go out and play good defense. If we get that from him today, it's great. But if we don't, that's fine too. The way that he takes the air out of the pressure that is trying to perform as a young player in the major leagues is special, and it's the thing that we were missing last year.
Yeah, and I like David Ross as a manager. I thought he did a pretty good job. One thing that Cubs players did for Ross is they played hard for him every single day. And that, even after the big sell-off in 2021, those remnant players that read like a waiver wire, they were out there playing hard. It's just that they weren't very good. But, Ross lacks some strategical information and knowledge, probably partly because he had never coached or managed anywhere before he got this managerial job.
Yeah.
Craig Counsell, in addition to the 9 years of managing, spent a couple of years in the Brewers player development department, so he understands that part of the game. It's really night and day. And these players play hard for Craig Counsell too, because they obviously respect him.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, if you have a question for us, throw it up in the comment section. And as we hang out, you guys, of course, know Al Yellon from Bleed Cubbie Blue. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for being here for you're like the professor. Professor Yellon comes in. He's giving the, I don't even know, it's like the first quarter exam of this Cubs team that, is a half a game behind Milwaukee, despite all of the things that could have gone wrong. The season could have gone down the tube. You blow an 8-run lead in one game to the Padres. How many other games that you have that the bullpen couldn't hold on to, and yet this team has been able to answer the bell. One of the things that I'm starting to really feel confident about, and I want to get your opinion, is Christopher Morel. I mean, he's starting to remind me of one of my favorite Cubs, Aramis Ramirez. The power, he's got the strong arm at third. I like him. And this is a big compliment from me.
Well, one thing about Morel is that he's gotten to the point now where you don't cringe every time a ball is hit to him at third base. He's actually become a decent third baseman. He'll make an error every once in a while. Bad throw will go a little bit wild, but he's generally making all the routine plays, and every now and then he'll make a spectacular play. The one thing about Morel's game that I've really been impressed with is his willingness to take walks. He doesn't just swing wildly. He's got, if you were watching ESPN Sunday Night Baseball last night, you saw that they revealed the new thing on StatCast, which is about players' bat speed. And Morel was listed as having the 5th highest average bat speed of any hitter in baseball. And that's with some of the greatest hitters that are around now, including Giancarlo Stanton and guys similar to that. But the thing about Morel is that he doesn't just swing wildly, as we saw with another favorite Cub from years past, Javi Baez, who, swung hard, but, often swinging pitches out of the zone. Morel doesn't do that. Morel will take his walks, and that makes him very valuable because, pitchers can't just throw that outside pitch and strike him out. At a certain point, they're going to have to come in with a good high fastball, and Morel will just launch those. So, yeah, he has turned himself into a very good major league third baseman.
Well, I agree with everything you said, and the walks are the biggest thing. And if he can continue to do that, he's got the bat speed to make up for maybe being fooled a little bit. You always look fastball, and then you hit the other stuff, right? And that's the way I was taught, and because you can't adjust to the fastball. If you're behind the fastball, you're not going to hit it. So you always have to be fastball and slow down. When you got that kind of bat speed, you've seen what he's been doing. Here's a question from Aaron and John. You kind of right where I'm at, but is there any chance that we get an upgrade from Madrigal? I don't know. I was a little concerned watching him play second base. He's been so good at third. Then playing second, I don't know. Like, I'm going, man, I guess just because we're used to Nico and Dansby. I know that the Cubs have Vasquez, who is I think a Gold Glove caliber shortstop, as long as you're without Dansby, but I don't know that he can hit. But honestly, I don't know that Madrigal can hit. So I know he makes contact, but he's like a double play every time he swings the bat to me. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I've never really been a Nick Madrigal fan. I know he hit when he was in college. In his brief time with the White Sox, he hit when he was there. Since he's been with the Cubs, of course, his years have been kind of ruined by injuries. This year he's been healthy, hasn't played that much. He's still an okay second baseman. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing Luis Vasquez get a chance to show what he can do. Otherwise he's probably going to wind up being trade bait Vasquez, because that's really the only place for him on this team, because they have Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner, locked in at shortstop and second base. Vasquez is going to be a backup infielder. And I think he could be a good backup infielder at the major league level. Saw him play a couple of years in the Arizona Fall League, saw him play in spring training. He can certainly play at the major league level. Is he going to hit better than Nick Madrigal? maybe, maybe not. He can certainly handle the defense. At some point, they're going to have to give him a shot.
Earl Weaver used to talk about, guys that ground into double plays, and he'd be like, why don't you just strike out? And I guess with Madrigal, like he said, contact hitter, but it's weak contact. And it's a lot of stuff where he's always hitting into a double play. And the difference to me between watching him come up and where he's at now is that the balls that used to be line drives are now ground balls. And that's why he hits into some, but he always makes contact, and it's always weak contact.
Right. And he doesn't have the speed to beat out double play relays, which that would make a difference. But he doesn't walk much. He has no power. So, where's the advantages here? I just don't see it.
Got Cody Bellinger and Seiya Suzuki back. Obviously, two of the best players in baseball, not just on the Cubs team. Your thoughts on these two guys returning and then the team persevering without them enough to stay in the race?
Bellinger came back, totally on fire. He went 8 for 23 over the 6 games of last week. That includes going 0 for 4 twice. So he just hit like crazy. And, they got to kind of ease him back into center field because you don't want him to hurt those ribs again. So he's been DHing some, but, you can see how much they missed him. Suzuki had one good game after coming back, and then he hit the ball hard several times on Sunday and didn't have any hits to show for it. So again, they're probably going to have to rotate him through the DH spot and right field a little bit because you don't want him to re-aggravate the oblique. Mm-hmm. So, and this is another thing that Craig Counsell is good at. He understands the needs of his players and, when they maybe need to sit out a game, maybe when they need to DH a game, and he will do that. David Ross was a lot more locked into a regular lineup, and even when maybe the guys needed a day off, they didn't get it. Counsell's much better with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with Dansby that always kind of irritates me is that I don't see Dansby Swanson as Cal Ripken. I think he's a good player, and he does a lot of things well. And when the Cubs signed him, I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't overwhelmed with Dansby Swanson. I didn't watch him every day, but I always thought he was, kind of a soft 260 hitter, and he had occasional power. You'd see him go in the slumps and all that stuff. But then you watch him and you're like, man, the guy plays great defense. He's a leader. He runs the bases. And I'm not afraid to say, hey, I'm wrong. I like him. I do like him. But he's not Cal Ripken. He doesn't need to play every day. They need to rest him. And I feel like if they would have rested him last year down the stretch, Cubs might have made the playoffs.
Well, the problem, of course, with last year is they didn't really have anybody to replace him.
Yeah. Well, Nico.
Yeah, but then you got to put somebody out there at second base, and they had to have Madrigal play third because last year Jamer Candelario went down with an injury.
Yeah.
So now who's going to play second base? That was an issue. It's still sort of an issue. Again, maybe they could mitigate that by calling up Luis Vasquez. A guy who can play good shortstop can almost certainly play a good second base. So, maybe he could play second base while Nico's playing short while Swanson is out. Swanson does have a little bit of power. He's hit 20-plus home runs several times. So is he Cal Ripken? Absolutely not. He should not be playing every day. And I think Craig Counsell is wise to give him days off. Obviously, this knee injury that was bothering him is one reason he wasn't hitting for a while before they finally convinced him to go on the injured list. So hopefully when he comes back, he's 100% and he can start hitting again.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping with, for too. Just to me, it's when you look at the way that this team is, sometimes I feel like, hey, what about David Bote? And it feels like David Bote has been sent to prison and he's not getting out. Why can't David Bote get back to the major leagues at some point, even just for a couple of days if they need
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, he's not on the 40-man roster, so they'd have to do something about that. I don't know that there's anybody, a position player on the 40-man roster that could go for him at this point, unless you're talking Miles Mastrobuoni. You're right. It seems like David Bote's been sent into exile. I don't know the reasons or the answer, but I can tell you, unless they can figure out a way to trade him, and they'd probably have to eat almost all of the money that they owed him in order to trade him, they will almost certainly pay the buyouts that they owe him after this year, and he'll become a free agent.
Well, yeah, and this is a great question, John. I was just going to ask the same exact thing. Al, I haven't heard this, so I don't know. I've never heard anything bad about Bote, like behind the scenes. I've known him. He's always been a really nice guy to me. Could he have done something wrong behind the scenes that?
You know, it's possible. I haven't heard anything like that either, but it's altogether possible. There's a lot of things we don't know, covering baseball from this position, but it's possible. And of course, the team's not going to say anything about that because they don't want to, they don't want to throw somebody under the bus in public. In fact, Joe Madden was real good about that, and I think Craig Counsell is real good about that too. That they just won't say anything in public. Bote got a lot of playing time during spring training, and I thought that might have been a precursor to making the team. On the other end, maybe they were just showcasing him so somebody might trade for him. But I guess unless there's a couple more injuries, you will not see him play for the Major League Cubs again. So we'll always have that grand slam in 2018, though.
And look, he got rich. I
Yeah.
mean, like he got rich, like to get paid $5.5 million to be an everyday Iowa Cub is, and that's just this year. Last year was a little less, the year before that, but good for him. I mean,
right. I mean that's a really good career for an 18th round draft pick. Most of those guys don't ever make the majors. And here's a little fun fact about that. You know who else was drafted in that the same 18th round that Bote was drafted in? I think 2012 was the year. Frank Schwindel was drafted in that round.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of what kind of level of talent that is. Frank Schwindel had 2 good months, but he wasn't really a major league player. And I don't think I don't want to say anything bad about Frank Schwindel. Seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
Always had a smile on his face. But I don't think anybody else from that 18th round ever played in the major leagues. So that's, good for David Bote. He made some money and he played some major league games, and he's got one memory that, all Cubs fans will always remember.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's talk about someone that has been absolutely brilliant. You know what? Hold that thought, because that's going to lead us into today's game. Let's talk about Kyle Hendricks first and the starting rotation. Kyle Hendricks was awful. I mean, just awful. And it was amazing, honestly, how bad he was, because we know how good he has been. But a 12 ERA, more home runs and extra base hits and runs than any other starter. I mean, just absolutely getting killed. Goes back to the minor leagues. I saw him in Tennessee, and what I saw was that he was pitching off of the off speed, the slider, like a lot of curves and sliders. And I talked to him afterwards, and he's like, I said, I know you're not here without a game plan, a strategy. And he started laughing. And then he went to Iowa, same thing. And then we saw it against the Pirates, same thing. So I don't know if the league's going to catch up to him, but I'll tell you what, it was really good to see him pitch and get out. So the other thing too is I think he's going to walk more guys now, because if he's in unfavorable counts, I don't think he's going to try to make a pitch that these guys can hit, because he's so hittable when he does that.
Right. So he gave up, he did give up another home run yesterday, but just one. Nobody on base. That's the only one he gave up. Did issue some more walks. Personally, I'd like to see him throw more curveballs. He's got a really good curveball. And, a lot of major league pitchers have gotten away from throwing curveballs because now they're throwing sliders and sweepers and splitters and everything else that's off speed. So a good major league curveball can get hitters out because they just don't see it very often. Hendricks was very good last year in 24 starts. I didn't see any reason why he couldn't be at least that good again this year. Yesterday seemed like a really good sign that he can continue to do that. Certainly he's earned, a couple more starts to see what happens. Hopefully that the 12 ERA dropped to 10 yesterday.
Yeah.
Hopefully it can continue to go down. If he pitches like he did yesterday, and he said after the game that he needs to go a little deeper, would like to go more than 5 innings, but that was a really good first effort to try and get back there.
Mm-hmm. And then overall starting rotation outside of Shota Imanaga, I've been blown away by Hayden Wesneski. You saw flashes. Like every time I would watch him pitch, I'd see that slider and the movement and, and all the stuff he could do. And then all of a sudden he'd just have that inning where they just ripped him apart. Like that hasn't happened. And Craig Counsell has been so complimentary of him. And I don't know if it's because he's really floored by how good his stuff is, or if it's a mental thing where he thinks, hey, this guy has always had it and he's just needed confidence. But he has used such glowing terms to talk about Wesneski, who's been great. Ben Brown, when he's been in the rotation at times or long relief, has been fantastic. And then you look at Tyone, who looks like the guy that we paid for this year, right? But he's got to stay healthy with the back. Your thoughts on the rotation?
let me go back to Wisniewski for a second. You know, one of the things I think we saw last year from him is that whenever he'd get into trouble, get a couple runners on base, he seemed to, stomp around on the mound a bit. And so I think maybe he did lose a bit of confidence, and that wound up, having bad outings. So confidence is definitely part of it. He definitely has stuff to get outs at the major league level. He's had some excellent outings this year. His off-speed stuff, it can be almost unhittable when it's working. You notice that the Cubs have a TBD list that is starting on Wednesday against the Braves. That could be Wisniewski, could be Javier Assad, who is also, Assad is another great story. That guy was never on the prospect radar, got called up because they kind of were desperate for somebody, and he just keeps getting outs. So I think they might go with Wisniewski on Wednesday because I don't think they want to keep having Assad going on 4 days rest. I think they want to give him a little more than that, kind of sort of a modified 6-man rotation for, maybe for a week or two. I know also they like to have Shota Imanaga with 5 days rest if they can do it, because that's what he was used to in Japan. He's only started once on 4 days rest so far this year. His start tonight will be on 5 days rest. And, all these starting pitchers, and I think that they kind of pick up each other because, one guy goes out and has a great outing and then, next man up, hey, I got to match that. And so they've pretty much done that. The Cubs have one of the best rotations in baseball right now, and you can just hope that continues.
Yeah, and you brought up Javier Assad, and I don't know how I forgot him, but I think Javi deserves to be in the rotation. I totally saw him come up through the system and never get the love because baseball right now is dominated by analytics, and it shouldn't be. Analytics should be a part of the formula, but the bottom line should be what you do out on the field. When you get on the mound, the success that you have getting outs and limiting teams as far as scoring runs, and then what happens in the games that you pitch. Do you get one of these? Do you fly the W, right? He's never going to impress any of the analytics people because he doesn't have the velocity, the spin rate, the da-da-da. Doesn't matter. The guy consistently gets outs, and I hope that the Cubs would just put him in the rotation and get out of the way and let the guy pitch.
Right, and that's it. He doesn't have the velocity. He doesn't have the 95-plus velocity that some starters have now, but, he can bring a fastball 92, 93, which is about league average. It's the off-speed stuff that's getting people out, and you can see he's got a mound presence. He goes out there, and you just have the sense that he knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants to do. And, it's just, there's a guy, like I said, was never really on the prospect radar, wasn't really thought of as one of the Cubs' top guys. Sometimes guys like that come out of nowhere, and they do well. I'm really happy to see what's happened with Javier Assad.
Look at World Series championship teams. It seems like they always have that guy, innings eater, guy that wins, that helps set up the rest of the rotation, and saves the bullpen. And that's the other thing that he's done. And I've seen Counsell trying to stretch these starters out to pitch more. He has to do that because the bullpen's so bad. But I like it because I think that you're going to benefit from it long term as well. Because of the bullpen.
One of the things to having a healthy Kyle Hendricks back pitching well is that you can put a Wisniewski in the bullpen. Okay, so now you got Wisniewski and Ben Brown in the bullpen, guys capable of throwing multiple innings. And with starters not going deep into games, teams are going to need that going forward. And the Cubs can have two lockdown guys who can give you 2 or 3 innings 2 or 3 times a week. Well, then you've really stretched out your pen, and you don't need all these guys every single day.
As you guys hang out with us on the Cubs baseball channel, that's Al Yellon from Bleed Cubbie Blue. We're going to talk about his book, some really fun Cubs trivia and stories in there. In just a second, I'm Mick Gillispie, and make sure that you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up and hit the bell so you know when we're doing shows like this, which is Professor Yellon giving the Cubs their first quarter grades on how things have gone right now. See if they pass when it's all said and done. One guy, Professor Yellon, who I think deserves an A for the first semester is Shota Imanaga. Can this success that he's had continued? 5-0 record, a 1.08 ERA. I think he's the best pitcher in baseball.
I just love this guy because, not only after while the Cubs were recruiting him, he came to Chicago and stayed around for a month, just kind of trying to absorb the city and the culture. And, he went to a Blackhawks game. Now he's using Chelsea Dagger as his walk-up music. And, he, just, he, 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 when he was introduced at his news conference, he recited some of the lyrics from Go Cubs Go in English. He just seems like a real thoughtful guy who knows, what he needs to do to win. And he's always, he doesn't rest on his laurels. He always says, he's ready to improve every single time he goes out there. So, the Cubs did their due diligence well on Shota Imanaga. And not only that, but they signed him for a very reasonable amount of money. They didn't have to, break the bank to go sign Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell. And Imanaga has been better than both of those guys. So your question there says, can he continue? I think absolutely yes. I think he knows what he's doing. He loves the Cubs. He loves being a Cub. And, obviously he's become a fan favorite already. And we're just all very happy to have him.
Yeah. I've everything you said, I agree with it 100%. I love the guy. And look, I love the fact that he's taking on Lopez and the Braves tonight, 6:20 Central Time. You're out on the West Coast, so it's going to be a little earlier for you. That'd be a 4:20 start.
That's right. This is interesting series. So you got the Cubs are facing two former White Sox pitchers in Lopez, and then tomorrow they get Chris Sale. And it's like, what is this? All of a sudden, we're seeing these South Side guys that they haven't seen in years. But both of those guys have done well so far this year. It's one of the reasons that Braves are doing as well as they are, is they've had some great pitching. So they're going to have to attack that and also get good pitching from their own starters. That's it's going to be a low scoring series, I think, with these great pitchers going.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, look, man, this has been fun. Hopefully the Cubs can keep on grinding it out, right? I mean, if they could win a game in the series, that's a success. They win two, that's an even bigger success, and obviously you'd love to go down there and just ruin the Braves and sweep them, but it's going to be tough. That's a good Braves team.
Yep.
Got a lot of hitting. And I think this is a great test for Imanaga facing one of baseball's best teams on their home turf, and we'll see how it turns out. But going to be a lot of fun watching that series. Tell us about the book, though.
So Chicago Cubs Firsts, it says available June 2024. It'll be published on June 4th. Can be pre-ordered now. This is basically a book full of little Cubs facts, just fun stuff about the Cubs, about the team, different players, about Wrigley Field, things that happened that were first in franchise history. So, and as I said before, in the book, we're going to have something that's never before been published. The very first day that the W flag ever flew above the Wrigley Field scoreboard. So check it out.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Is this a first for you, book-wise?
This is my third, actually. I had a book called Cubs by the Numbers. It's a kind of history of uniform numbers for the team, and then have a book called A Season for the Ages about the Cubs World Series winning season in 2016.
So when you wrote this book, how much did you have fun doing the research? And
yeah, it was great because first of all, the publisher gave me a lot of time. I had well over a year to do all the research and the writing and all that, and it was definitely fun. Looking stuff up and finding out things that I didn't know, and putting in this book for our Cubs fans to read.
That must be cool to go do all that, and then you get the hard copy, and it's like, here it is. Like my name's on there. So
yeah.
Who did the forward?
Pat Hughes. Pat's been very generous. He's done the forwards for all my books, and Pat is just a great guy. He's everybody who listens to him broadcast Cubs games on the radio knows how good a broadcaster he is, but he's also just he's a really good person, and I'm privileged to call him a friend.
Yeah, I love Pat too. And Ron, can't forget about Ron. Gonna have to have those guys on the channel sometime soon. And anything at Bleed Cubbie Blue, tell people how they can go check that out, and you got a great site.
Thanks. Appreciate it. BleedCubbieBlue.com, social media at Bleed Cubbie Blue. And also we have a Facebook page, just, covering all things Cubs all the time, every day.
Awesome. Well, Al, thank you, man. Great time. And what grade would you give the Cubs? Last question.
I think we got to give them a B+ right now. There's still some things that have to be fixed. Obviously, you need to get better relief work. But, most things are going right. And a 24-17 record, a quarter of the way through the season, that you're looking at a 95 win season if you keep up that percentage. That would be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd give them an A-, but for the same reasons, right? The fact that you lost your two best position players and still were able to hang in there, to me, You got Pete Crow Armstrong going, Hollywood Pete. It's been fun watching the young guys figure out how to pitch. And I love Craig Counsell's just his demeanor and his style. And so, so we both give him very, very good grades. Well, let's do it again soon now. For
sure. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And if you got anything going on, make sure you jump on and hang out with us. And guys, thank you for being here for today's show. Make sure that you hit the bell so that you know when we're dropping shows or we're going live. And thumbs up means you like the Cubs. Share with your Cubs friends. Let's continue to build this thing. And again, thank you guys so much for hitting that milestone over the weekend. We're going to keep on doing it. And hopefully the Cubs are going to give us a lot of good things to talk about. We'll be on tomorrow morning unless something breaks. And we hope that you'll be here with us. Thanks a lot, Al. Thanks a lot to you guys, and go Cubs.